Verde patrons. Today we are here with Dr. Susan Perz, the filmmaker behind Saving Jaguars and Ourselves. Saving Jaguars and Ourselves explores the issues in the Amazon rainforest, the Cerrado savanna, and the Pantanal in Brazil. So, Susan, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm thrilled to be here, so thank you.
We're so happy to have you here. So let's start off, and what are some of the difficulties you faced in making this film?
Well, it's very difficult to film wild jaguars on a very fast-flowing river in a very small boat. And the big boats come by and they create these big wakes, and so your boat goes boom. Literally.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, and but you know, I was in the boat with Abby Martin. She's a very, very talented boat driver, and she did a very good job of trying to minimize that. And she actually helped us find some really good jaguar sites because she knows the area so well. So that was a plus.
Yeah, field work can be rewarding but difficult in research. So in group discussion after the film, you mentioned that a group called Amazon Watch, a nonprofit, is working with indigenous peoples to combat the issues that we're seeing in Brazil right now. What do you think that we can take from indigenous groups when it comes to being stewards of our environment?
One of the biggest things right now, because the United States and China are the biggest fossil fuel polluters, Marina Silva, who is one of the environmental cabinet, I believe, members over in Brazil, stated in a recent interview that even if they, in Brazil, under Lula da Silva, the new president, even if they eliminate deforestation 100%, the Amazon will still die because largely, actually didn't say ours, but fossil fuels are driving severe drought. The South America has been in 5 years of severe drought, and that drought is actually harming the Amazon rainforest's ability to create its own weather. It creates its own weather through the way that it cycles carbon and oxygen,
Right.
And so it has flying rivers above it that are the moisture that it puts into the forest puts into the air,
Right.
that have more water in them than the land rivers.
Okay.
And they are decreasing, and the land rivers are so low now that some of the big shipping companies had to stop shipping because their big ships were running aground. The Pantanal, which is 500 miles below the Amazon, normally floods every year for, used to be about 5 or 6 months, and now it's about 4 months because the rivers are lower and the water coming from the Amazon is so decreased. And so the drought is actually harming the Amazon's ability to survive. And the Amazon rainforest, the weather that it creates, affects our weather in the United States as far north as Wisconsin, and probably the entire planet, because one scientist in Brazil has called the Amazon the world's air conditioner because it cools both oceans. It cools the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, which most likely probably affects Antarctica, most likely, since it just affects the weather everywhere worldwide. I mean, it is one of those anchor areas that we cannot afford to lose.
Exactly.
Because we can't solve climate change without the Amazon.
Yeah.
We cannot.
To make the point that man is not separate from nature, we are always a part of it, right? And the environment is a circular system. It's a circular machine, and when you damage one component of it, you're liable to a lot of it breaking down. And the economic value of the environment is something that's truly understated. It seems like we only pay attention when we lose that.
Yeah, I mean, the Earth is an organic, living being, really. And everything is interconnected. And every time we turn around, scientists are saying, well, we didn't expect that this was connected to this. This is an unexpected, circular cause. So we really don't understand everything that we don't understand. We know the jet stream is now affected by climate change. I mean, it's just everything is connected. It's an organic living being, the earth is. And we are an organic part of it.
It's a really great point to make. So, in light of that, you witnessed firsthand the devastating destruction of our forests, but you've also seen a lot of the dedicated efforts that people are making on the ground floor to try to make things right. So, what do you have to say about hope for the future in that case?
Well, with people like Abby Martin, with the Jaguar Identification Project, her work is really, really foundational because in studying jaguars and using citizen science, by using citizen science where people take photos of jaguars and she puts it into a guide, that she's got 300 jaguars, whole family trees. That raises the awareness, and ranchers and ecotourism, everybody, fishermen, everybody wants to protect the jaguars because it is helping them economically. So if a jaguar does kill a cow, which isn't that often, then they don't kill the jaguar because they know it's raising everybody's standard of living, and it's also protecting the environment because people in Brazil, average people, have a very, very strong love for the environment and very high in ethics about taking care of the environment. They also have Panthera Brazil, which is teaching sustainable farming and teaching people how to use, ranchers how to use electric fences to protect their cattle, which also protects the jaguars.
Right.
So they're doing very, very important work there. And then Caroline Lichtenberger is with the Giant Otter Project. So giant otters are endangered. And she's also studying giant otters, and they have these markings on their necks that also allow them to be individually identified. So I think there's about 5 or 7 otter families up and down all these rivers that she's tracking, and that's also really important. But in terms of your question in a global way, at the last COP, Al Gore stated that as soon as we stop using fossil fuels, the world will immediately start cooling.
Right.
And within 30 years, the carbon that we created, the carbon dioxide in the air, will dissipate. It'll be gone in 30 years. So our problem is, he says it's a political problem. I think it is a problem of greed, corporate greed, because corporations don't want to, oil and gas corporations do not want to give up fossil fuels because they're a big source of money.
So, in light of that corporate greed, if you could do anything to make the world safer to live in, anything that you could advise others, steps that they could take, what would you say?
4 things. First, we can bank local. We can use local banks and credit cards or credit unions, and they don't invest in fossil fuels or deforestation. And we can also use homeowners insurance and car insurance that doesn't insure fossil fuels. And greenfaith.org has resources for that online. It's also on my film website, Saving Jaguars and Ourselves. The second thing is the Forest Act is a bill in Congress, and it would require corporations to prove their supply chain that their goods they bring in the country did not come from newly deforested areas. So that's a petition that I have, and you can also write your congressman about it. Third thing is the Fossil Free Finance Act, and that is a bill in Congress, and it would make it illegal for big banks to fund fossil fuels, specifically coal by 2025 and all fossil fuels by 2030. The last thing that I want to say is corporations operate internationally, many of them. They are publicly traded. They are not mom and pop capitalism that we grew up with. They're not even, most of them, sole proprietor, where one person can make an ethical decision and run a company in ethical ways. They're often, if they're publicly traded, then big banks own them and usually have large percentage of their stocks. So when it comes to these types of corporations, I think they should be nonprofits. I think they should be nonprofits.
Divestment is key as well, right?
Yeah, it is key, and it is something that is a very different way for people to think. But because these corporations are really acting in ways that are environmental crimes that affect the entire earth and all of humanity, and they are doing them despite the fact that they threaten life on earth, that is so horrible and egregious that I don't know that they deserve, I don't believe they deserve to continue to operate in the manners that they are operating. And because they refuse to change, that's what makes me feel that they need to lose the right to have their operating licenses and operate the way they are.
Okay.
And they should be nonprofits.
That's great. So let's have you talk about the next one that you're making
Oh,
really
sure.
quickly.
Yeah.
Just let us know what it's about and etc.
So I'm actually working on the feature version of this film, and it will have a lot more footage of jaguars. It'll have more about the local people, interviews that I did of local people, and it has more information really about to help us understand how what we do affects South America and also Africa, because really the whole southern hemisphere of the United States probably needed global average temperatures of 1.0 instead of 1.5. And so Africa's had about 10 years of drought in various places. South America's had 5 years of severe drought in many of its places, if not everywhere. So there'll be a lot more interaction and give and take, and